For as much, loved ones, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, when I appeared in court specially and claimed to have a claim of right, etc., 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 guess who goes for a psychiatric evaluation within 10 minutes? And the judge did not need my consent when I suggested I don't consent. So again, that conversation, that court case was all about standing back in the days. So yeah, we had a very good understanding of what was going on. So here's where I failed the psych evaluation. After I bedazzled the doctor for 5 to 10 minutes about all my knowledge of all this stuff, legal and equitable, this is what the doctor says to me. So Darren, you're stating, or you're saying that you have a very good understanding of the legal system. I said, yes, I do. He got up, closed his books, and walked out. See what just happened? True, Lori. I absolutely agree with you. The temple is always within us. Yeah, again, it's just a matter of getting something, changing the record, getting some type of legal, equitable interests flowing. The problem is that we've been doing nothing our entire lives. I don't care how we come at this thing, whether it's through the person or at arm's length of the person through a trust, done properly, there is remedy on both sides of the fence. All I'm suggesting here, loved ones, is after 10 years of using common law, Dean and I did not feel we were availed of our rights, which is where this whole equity angle has come into it. Now, again, it's just a matter of deciphering what is commingling, what is not commingling, when can we act in person or in rem for a title proceeding versus in personam, mixing all that stuff together. Again, for another example, I just went through that process. The judge was either really scared of it, he didn't want that going anywhere, so they were very quick to remove that in rem proceeding at law, dealing with a title split and the man or woman coming in personam. They wanted that thing gone. So more things to consider. Okay, yeah, for you, Jonathan, the biggest problem that we ran into with coming as settler or grantor was that we did not have the thing in which we were trying to grant or deliver or transfer or get rid of. Who has the thing? Well, that's the grantee. Again, this is where Dean and I dropped the ball years ago. You have to establish who the grantee is first and why, and show evidence of that, etc., etc., etc. Once that thing is now established, as I was just mentioning above here, now we can proceed. Now we can knock on the temple's door. Now we can come as settlor. So really, Jonathan, concentrate on grantee and acquiring the whole title first, right? That's both halves. Once those things merge in the same person or the same individual, now something magical can happen. Showing up as the grantor, the judge would say, okay, if you're the grantor, then who's the beneficiary? Because you can't be both. And if, Dean, you're the grantor, then I'm going to be the beneficiary, correct? And we kind of dropped it. Or he would say, okay, Dean, if you're the grantor settlor, then we're the grantee, correct? See, so we got fucked again there. So again, it's a matter of 1, 2, 3ing this all in one shot. And you never want to be in one of these positions singularly for too long. Otherwise, you're really not capitalizing or not, fundamentally curing our problem. And again, can this be done by voice in court? Yeah, Your Honor, I'm the grantee. Now that I got the thing, I'm going to show up as the settlor, right? I've got some capacity all of a sudden. Now I've got some standing. This is where the standing comes from. This is the evidence that Lori's talking about. When the grantee and the grantor show up, a merger takes place, right? And if you can evidence all this properly, boom, this is the evidence. This isn't just sitting lying on a shelf somewhere. You have to stitch these things together, which is why, again, that they've spent so much time trying to confuse us all of our friggin' lives so that we would never see this. But again, once you do the 1, 2, 3, and you see how this operates, it's actually going to be very simple. Again, you don't need 30-page documents with language that nobody frickin' understands. Love you guys. Greetings, loved ones. So yes, to elaborate on the above here, for example, when I went for that psych evaluation, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little longer, when I was making a bit of a beef about not consenting to this order that the judge was just about to lay out, she was very firm when she says, I don't need your consent. So what does that imply? That implies that she already has it if she doesn't need it. So by us or her having my consent already, where did that come from? Well, that comes from us using that birth certificate and going and making application as a public citizen. That voluntary act right there provides the consent. So moving forward, whenever you hear someone saying, I do not consent, no, do not take me to jail, no, don't stick me with that needle, blah, blah, blah. That is a that is an argument or a point of fact that is useless. It is of no facts, it's of no merit, it's of no force and effect. Why? Because they already have the consent. So the only way we can remove our consent is by changing that application that we made when we are 15-ish or 16-ish years old to become that public citizen. Again, that is the nuts and bolts of removing the consent. After that's done, then we can continue to either accept or not accept terms and conditions proposed to us by third parties or government entities or anything of these natures. But again, the record shows that we have consented, and us standing up in court merely suggesting I don't consent is not enough to rebut that presumption. We need a lot more than that. Yes, and Victor, for the proper titles for the they. Yeah, typically it's just going to be the administration taking place through the Attorney General's office. They're basically the overseers, but it's the public guardians. They're the ones that do the bulk of the paperwork shuffling. The Attorney General's office would just oversee it. Again, and that would be the Department of Justice. So anytime you see me use the word they, I'm merely referring to the government and all of its agents. Sometimes the bankers get mixed into the they, as alluded to above, especially like Isabel's comment there, respecting, how being an infantryman and a soul dire soldier on the battle lines is very important. Again, sureties. The scripture talks about being a surety. Do not volunteer to be surety for a stranger, lest ye be snared and trapped and about to live a life of purgatory, etc., etc. So again, the suretyship position is something that, again, is very, very important, that needs to be dealt with. Breaking that surety position is something that we are considering. As a matter of fact, I've been considering it for 5 years and trying to get out from underneath it. The good news is, again, there are 3 parties to every contract, or as I've mentioned, right? We got the creditor, we got the debtor, and we got the surety. The cool thing about the surety, though, is that is a position that can exercise rights, that does have a little bit of power if it's used properly. For example, we are acting as sureties, but the crown is actually still a co-surety, right? Because this is where it all came from, was the crown. So at the very best, we could only be essentially volunteering to take over the role or position of surety from the primary sureties, who was the crown. So therefore, as the co-surety, we can exonerate our position. We can suggest something like this. Hey agent, hey banker, hey your honor, hey lawyer, hey whoever, upon my consideration being of value attached to certain debt, I now express this as a trust, and the surety will be exonerated within 30 days if the creditor does not bring a suit or bring their complaint against the principal debtor, the co-surety, the crown. So what you're suggesting is, hey, I'm not the debtor anymore. Go chase the real debtor. And if you don't chase the real debtor within 30 days, I'm automatically exonerated. Again, exoneration is a full, hardcore, equitable remedy. You may hear about it legally once in a while, but no, that's equitable doctrines there. Isn't this incredible that they trick us into becoming the enemy? Deemed us enemies of the state, etc., to be spit upon and hit with sticks and killed, literally, through any means necessary. Again, this is all Trading with the Enemy Act, tied into the Emergency Banking Relief Act. This is all, it's all pretty dubious. It's all pretty heinous stuff. But again, we're on to them. And to address the driving around with plates or no plates or private plates or things of this nature, to be honest with you, loved ones, I'm a little still on the fence with this one. It kind of reads like this. If you pursue the private plate option, just make sure you have a little bit of knowledge to back up your situation when you get pulled over. Now, you can avoid getting pulled over primarily if you send notice to the police departments in your immediate area, at the very least. You know, whether it's a fax or an email or a written letter or all three or whatever it is. That notice, though, needs to have some certain nuts and bolts in it that's going to make it effective. We can help with all that, of course. As I've alluded to in one of the conversations that actually started the Dïevergent live program, was I was being called out to produce the document where a friend of mine from several years ago sent something into the Attorney General's office, and then he's been pulled over twice, and then as soon as he produces his license, he might say just the odd little thing there about, oh, that's not my name, that belongs to Her Majesty the Queen type of thing. However, the officers immediately return his driver's license and say, hey, have a nice day, even though he just got pulled over for doing 35 kilometers over the speed limit. So therefore, something's working in the background. But at the same time, here's option B. Maintain the driver's license and the place as is. However, you can send notice into the Department of Motor Vehicles with a similar notice that you're sending to the police. You can actually change the terms and conditions of the driver's license. You can now inject a whole bunch of trust equitable stuff, a whole bunch of fee simple stuff, a whole bunch of grantee and settlor grantor stuff, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. At least this is going to get the ball rolling in your favor, where they're going to be very hesitant to pull you over now, because now they may be flirting with breach of trust. And in doing so, right now they're opening themselves up to liability. So again, we can help with all of this stuff. However, I'm going to throw that back and say whichever you're more comfortable with. If you've been doing this for a long time and you can afford to get pulled over and you're not nervous and you're not going to come unglued and you can maintain your composure and your control and not be swearing at the officer and I'm a man. Do not say I'm a man. I mean, if you do say I'm a man, say I'm a man of the land. Do not say I'm a man on the land. That is such a dubious little play on words. However, I do have a letter from a judge in chambers, private, in confidence, to another friend of mine that addresses him as the man of the land, in brackets, 3 or 4 times on the very first page of the letter. So clearly, that has some power. Excellent, Victor. Nice input. Yeah, see, there you go. If you're holding the certificate and if you've done nothing with it, you are not the owner of nothing. Literally no rights, no standing. Everything that we're talking about here for the last 20 years. So is what I mentioned about the car and expressing some special trust towards it. Yeah, there you go. When you make application for these licenses, or when you renew these licenses, or when you make registration arrangements with the state, etc., start smashing all of these applications with your better title and your better claims for equity, and watch what happens. Hey, Big Kahuna. Crazy, right? Very reminiscent of the time when I was with Dean, when we figured out what person actually meant. Cheers, bro. Hey, Jesse. Yeah, good question. Realistically, that diplomatic plate does serve a lot of the remedy that we're seeking. However, it is limited in capacity and scope as well. So even though the equitable doctrines and principles and track and all the evidences and claims and adverse claims and everything that we're doing in the background through our processes may generate a plate that has diplomatic immunity on the public side, because that probably would be of the one of the highest calibers, other than like straight up military stuff, that you could have in terms of a protective bubble, if you will. So yeah, again, I'm firmly going to believe that they're going to, when we try to be private yet we walk amongst the dead, correct, they're going to want us to be able to just blend in. They don't want us to have crazy red flags all over our stuff, drawing attention, having public questions, and we've actually kind of experienced some of this already. So I'm going to suggest at the end of the day, it's going to be beneficial for both parties if we just kind of blend and disappear, stay private, and not put our names on bridges and buildings and things of this nature. So I hope that answers the question. And again, all that equitable substance floating around in the background that we're using or applying or enforcing into our applications and requests and demands and things of this nature, notices, of course, keep all that equity tight, and then that way the public will generate a remedy that serves our private means but yet looks public on the surface of it. For example, your birth certificate, when they cancel the other one and reissue a new one, I wouldn't be surprised if that new one looks exactly the same as the old one. But what has happened internally? See, and again, we don't have privy to a lot of that stuff, but we can, put our our intuitions together and come up with some plausible ideas. Again, I can dig out some legislation that shows how much they go through in the background to make sure that our private stuffs are not registered. Because again, registration makes it public. I've said that a number of times, but again, for the newer people joining us on this, yeah, that's part of the process. So therefore, they will record or file our particulars, but then that's it. Protective measures then kick in gear. Call that like a caveat or an encumbrance, a protective bubble, a firewall, a partition even, yes. All protecting those interests expressed in the background. Okay, Jesse, fire away if you have any more on that one. Okay, this is for Rob again. Yeah, appreciate the compliments there, my friend. In terms of setting up the trust in the companies and this, that, and the other, this can be a little sticky. Dean and I had another very good friend of ours actually hire a lawyer to help him at the time. Now, this is going back 5 or 7 years or so ago. This lawyer was hired to help this gentleman set up a private trust and get it all done hunky-dory the way that we're talking about doing. Fast forward 5 years later, and this guy paid good money to this lawyer to have this done. So fast forward about 5 years when this guy started to try to rely on this trust expression, etc., etc., etc. Here's what the Attorney General's office said to this man, friend of ours, with respect to his trust that a lawyer set up. The Attorney General said, "You do not have a valid trust." As in, it's not effective, it's no good. And I saw some of the documentation, and I instantly found the fault as to why it wasn't a valid trust. And this is through a lawyer. This lawyer set up our friend to have these positions. He was the trustee, the beneficiary, all at the same time. So clearly, this is again why I have problems trusting lawyers, although at some point here in the future we may go down that road a little bit more, just to see again if we can hire these lawyers privately to act for us privately. As far as I know, there is a window of opportunity there to do that. But is it worth reviving what you did back then? Perhaps, but it may be perhaps more beneficial just to start again. Because if your process was flawed in a number of respects, rather than try to cure those defects and those limitations, it may be easier just to start from scratch and new. Let's see here. So you're talking about the peace treaties. Yes, this is why coming in peace with clean hands, getting out of that war situation is critical. When I'm suggesting a bill of peace in equity, that technically is a peace treaty. So when we're deemed to be enemies, belligerents, lunatics, wards of the state, we come forward with our own expression saying, no, 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 I'm a friend of the crown, I'm a friend of the state, etc., etc., and here's why. Because I'm no longer in possession of that security certificate. As the trustee, all right, we're going to start settling matters. And as soon as you come with the clean hands and in peace, this is technically what opens the door for us. Moving forward here, yeah, it's going to be the most peaceful way to do it. Any other suggestions? Yeah, that's pretty much all it's going to be for now, my friend. In relation to Turtle Island and facing a foreclosure, those are all manageable. Again, it's just a matter of expressing whether it's personal property or real property and defining it as trust property or trust res, R-E-S. Identifying trust property is pretty easy. This is why we did like the postal mail system where we could use those registered numbers. Although, again, now we're playing with, okay, now if we're dealing with registration numbers, that means this is property of the crown. Now it's up to us to express our use of that properly. Again, there's Sedeke use, there's Sedeke trust, and there's Sedeke V. So we have to get our heads wrapped around, okay, which of these three positions are we at this point in time? Which do we become? And how do we collapse that implied trust? Again, so this is all stuff that we're going to be going over here pretty soon with the Equity Crayon program, which is, you know, again, there's going to be a lot of similarities drawn between the Crayon program here and KïnderGardën. These are essentially programs for the beginners to let people get their heads gently wrapped around what's going without feeling like they're drinking from several fire hoses all at the same time. So again, these are all things that we're developing in the background right now. Actually, as I speak to this one, we're working on it. So moving forward, yeah, the tax issues, all these things Once the trust claims that it has jurisdiction over the debt, that means the man doesn't any longer or no longer has to be involved with that debt. That's what the key function or the key role of the trust is to do. It manages the debt. It manages the finances. It manages the property, the use, all that stuff through the participation of the trustees. That's probably all I got for you on that for now. But yeah, I would definitely get and keep the fires lit, keep all the momentum hot, keep digging. We're going to start presenting some paperwork here pretty soon with the notices and this, that, and the other, so that we can get some trust expressions going. And again, these are components of the system. To draft a notice, okay, well, that's one part of several pieces that are going to get the job done. And ultimately, like I've said in several times in the past here, I want to get before the judges. I want to use the courts so that all of our systemic problems are dealt with on the surface before this thing gets deep, and then we run into huge problems later. So again, the judges are there for our aid and assistance, and it's a matter of drafting simple procedures and simple protocols outside of legislation. Because again, as we were just describing here about this Edward Mandell House, when he quoted right in there, between the judges and the attorneys and the legislation and all the bullshit to keep everything confused, now they can just come back and say, oh, well, yeah, we don't understand and we don't understand your claims. This is precisely what equity is here for, loved ones, so that we can get around all the legal bullshit, because that's all the legal world is complete bullshit. We actually don't need the legal world at all. Once we get rid of corporations, that gets rid of the entire legal process. We all operate under trusts, we all operate directly with Treasury, and we all manage our affairs properly. Guess what we just did? You got rid of the entire use for corporations. So, at the end of the day, that's my job, is to get rid of those things. But, that'll come in time, and we're all getting there. Okay, loved ones, I'll stay on top of the questions and moving forward. Hey, Judy. No, actually, I haven't heard of those guys. I will give that video a quick look over. Yeah, in the last few years, there has been a lot of people turned on to the equity game here. Dean and I and a couple others, 5-ish years ago, really got turned on to this one. Equity was virtually unheard of. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was trying to get Dean out of jail back in the day, going through some of the books and seeing, Chancery Court and things listed about equity and this, that, and the other. And we actually had very, very little guidance. We actually had very little to go on with respect to equity. But, good thing we stuck to it, because within a few short years here, we've made some incredible progress with things. Again, we can get into some of those stories here in a little bit. But yeah, anybody on this trail expressing an interest in equity is going to be on the right track. Again, we spent upwards of 10 years chasing common law remedy. And yes, we did experience little ones here and there, but it never really provided the fruit we were after. Coincidentally, we were always searching for the common law. We got to get the common law. We got to get the common law to help us out. All blah, 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 blah. Where's the common law? Oddly enough, we were already in the common law, and that was part of our problem. Again, common law for commoners. The King James Bible was actually a version written for the common people, which means, I don't want to say it's a dumbed down version, but it would have been, either scrubbed, or it would have been, missing key facts, pieces, evidence, things of this nature. Anytime that the elite are doing things for the common, it's not for the best interests for individuals. Again, the public interest always overrides everything we're doing. Even privately, sometimes the public interest can override our private interest, but that's going to be very rare. Because, long story short here, everything we do is actually in the public interest. Believe it or not, when we start liquefying these estates, once we start, proving they exist and proving our entitlement to them and yada, yada, yada. And again, remember, a life estate only exists in equity. This is not a legal remedy at all. It cannot exist in the legal realm. As a matter of fact, this does tie into the Sedeke trusts or the Sedeke V trusts, things of this nature. The common law, I'll actually show it to you in Gibson's book, where Gibson suggests that the common law thinks that the Sedeke entire program is repugnant, which means that the legal realm it doesn't want to recognize the Sedeke trusts at all. So therefore, that is not the realm to be diving into to try to seek remedy and get some answers. You will always run into circular arguments and definitions of words and phrases that lead into other definitions of words and phrases in a continuous confusing loop. So yes, anybody on that equity train has my respects. Anybody chasing this stuff, again, has my respects, and we're here to do everything we can to help out all those people that are on this journey, period. Thanks, loved ones. Hey, Big Kahuna, yeah, this answer's for you. Yeah, respecting the Dominion of Canada. Yeah, so you can imagine the Dominion is actually technically still there. It's just vacant. There are no, living a man or a woman occupying. I hate that word, occupying. There's no one taking up those seats or those positions. Imagine walking into a great hall and you're looking at tables and chairs, but there's no one sitting in them. This is where the difference between the de facto and the de jure government starts to take shape. When they tricked us into occupying, there's the word, a military position. Again, an occupation is an invasion. So every time that these job applications or every time we're filling out paperwork and it says, what's your occupation? That we think that means, oh, what do you do for a living? Well, unfortunately, that word has a much deeper meaning than we thought. And on the surface, it looks pretty innocent, but no, you're actually admitting, you're actually endorsing, you're attaching your consideration to an occupation, which means you just voluntarily suggested that you are acting as an invading force and now you are occupying a territory. This is all military war doctrine. So again, coming in peace with clean hands, we get to clean up that situation. We actually get to restore our dominion. Again, if a judge were to ask me, Darren, what's the remedy you're seeking in any of my paperwork or anything that I'm chasing at the moment, my single word answer is dominion. I want my dominion restored. That, in effect and consequence, is so encompassing. It is so dynamic. It is such a broad scope of relief. It literally includes everything. Other than eternal life. Those would pretty much be the only two things that I actually claim as equitable remedies. I mean, yeah, the injunction accounting and all that other stuff too, but the primary ones there. So yes, the Dominion of Canada still exists. And how do we know this? We've actually had notaries sign and generate paperwork where a notary acting within the realm of the Dominion of Canada was actually still produced. So these notaries, they know what that is. Law firms will know what this is, but again, they won't voluntarily tell you that unless you specifically ask them. And even when you ask them, and they might still look at you sideways, or like you got a horn growing out of your forehead. But if you're persistent and you act with a little bit of candor and you can basically hold your own and sound somewhat convincing, yes, they do still honor the Dominion. But as public citizens of the corporation, like you're alluding to above, changing the flag and being the enemy of the state, etc., we're not afforded very much, what would you call it, positive type environmental stimuluses. We're just continually beat up, chased down, hit with a big stick, thrown in jail, fined, taxed, all those things, because again, we are the ones with the dirty hands. We're the ones coming with, sinful means. I was saying to Jody here yesterday, can you imagine when you show up in person, right? Imagine you got that mask on your face. When you got that mask on your face and you're trying to contract, again, contracting is the only thing that a person can do. A person, a public citizen, someone with dirty hands, unclean intentions, as far as I can tell, they're not even entitled to create trusts. They're not. When you're labeled, deemed an enemy, you can't even create a trust. This is why I'm suggesting going to the courts, because believe it or not, the judges are the ones who actually create the resulting trust. You show up with a bunch of evidence that is to be real, truthful, factual, things of this nature. You present it to a judge. He looks at it. He creates the resulting trust. Why? Because you proved to him that you're able to. If you just try to wing this on your own, it's very, I've seen it before where they can still just, well, the record shows that you're still dead, and even though you're standing here flapping your gums, I will not, they don't honor the things we're talking about. So again, it's much more beneficial, as far as I can see, to have the courts and the judges help us with all of this stuff. The resulting trust is huge. Now we can be proven to be able, capable, not incapacitated. We don't want to be creating contracts. We want to be creating trusts. Big, big difference between the two. And again, as far as I can see, just to quickly surmise here, a legal fiction, a legal person, a public citizen doesn't even have the right to create a trust. So that's a bit of a twist for people. Where else was I going with that one? I think that was it. So yeah, okay, talk to you loved ones in a bit. Hey Timothy, yeah, thanks for that post, my friend. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the Queens and I and other loved ones were actually in a bit of a race to develop the equity crayon program, really, which is alluding to the fact that, hey, we're trying to simplify this down to the point where 8-year-olds can start to get their heads wrapped around this. Jody is fantastic at getting me to dumb stuff down, and we're going to try to dumb this stuff down to the point where it's kind of silly to adults, but children and youngsters would start to get their heads wrapped around this. We're going to start using more visuals, more pictures, more analogies, more other stories that could relate to things that we're doing, just to have our imaginations pick up the slack here and start to fill in some blanks. Because again, I was just laughing at Jody here yesterday, the day before, when she sat down for the whole day going over some of the law texts and the legislation and the definitions and this, that, and the other. And it's very stimulating. Yes, it's very empowering, and yes, it's exciting and all that and stuff. But again, we're here to try to save people the 10 to 20 years of all of that research. Now, go ahead if you so choose, because the more diversity you have, the more of a foundational experience you can develop by diving into all this material is certainly going to help. But here's where I would definitely direct people into a different direction. Dean and I and other loved ones, we spent 10 to 15 years chasing the legal system in common law, only to realize, hey, that's going to get trumped by equity. So I would definitely reverse that protocol. I would say, hey, study equity first, and then just kind of fill in a couple of blanks with the legal system. Because as soon as you start getting very, very well versed in legalese, believe it or not, it becomes very hard to undo that. Or you actually have to be so mindful of every word that comes out of your mouth. You don't want to commingle equity and the common law, or equity and the legalese. It's hard for me. It's hard for Dean. We've actually spent years trying to undo a lot of the stuff we had learned. So that would be a little bit of advice that I would send to new people that are starting to look into this stuff now. And now the next question is, okay, where do I start? Where are these equity books? What should I concentrate on this, that, and the other? Now again, these are going to be variables that we talk about in the equity crayon program. We're going to say, check out this book, look at this paragraph, pay particular attention to this sentence, notice what this word means, combine that with these 3 words, what do you get? We're going to start actually building children's books for this purpose, to help explain all this stuff. But yes, Timothy, absolutely appreciate the effort and what it takes to pursue this, because yes, it rips families apart. Yes, it drives your friends away. Yes, your employer is going to think you're a lunatic. Well, coincidentally, we were already a lunatic, so whatever he thought of us or she thought of us at that time actually made no consequential difference. So continue with the enthusiasm, loved ones. Keep putting in. We're going to keep putting out, and we're all going to get there together. So we're on it. Driver's license and registration. Sorry, officer. I'm not personable. What did you just say there? You literally just said I'm not able to act in person. He'll actually ask you, so what did you say? He'll actually get you to say it two or 3 times. Expand on that one a little bit. But when you are not person able, that means you're not able to act in person, which means he cannot attach any liability to you because you're not acting. You're the real deal. I've experienced that one firsthand when I drove through a big check stop with no driver's license, registration, or insurance. I can repeat that story if people want to, but again, there's prima facie evidence suggesting that I was not going to act in person, which is why I was told to have a good evening and drove away. They need you to admit to acting in person. As soon as you're not person able, that significantly diminishes that officer's chances of attaching liability to you. And even if he says, well, I don't give a shit what you're saying, I'm still issuing you a ticket and you can deal with it in court. Well, okay, fine. Be prepared for that. But as long as you get it on the record, as long as you make a statement to that officer stating such things as that, as something as simple as I'm not personable, I cannot act in person, it goes against my good conscience. And I have a conflict with doing things that are unconscionable, officer. Now, if you're going to force me to do things that are unconscionable, a judge might be very interested in the things I have to say. And what's your badge number again there, officers 01678 and 3? Now remember, all these officers have their lapel mics going, right? And they've all got video on board their chest armor, watching and recording everything. So again, loved ones, it's just a matter of taking a few of these simple words that have dynamite impact and string them together and just have the confidence to do it. Now, I'm going to actually start to develop a bit of a script, or just a number of sentences, but very short, like little situations like that, where if you do get pulled over, here's things to say or here's things not to say, and we can go from here. And again, always remain in peace, have a smile on your face, don't be scared. But again, I'm also going to suggest, we can send off some of these notices to your local police departments, to your local attorney general's offices, things of that nature, just to let them know, hey, you got a bit of a live one here. I may not know everything, but I certainly know enough not to act in person because it goes against my religious beliefs. And I'm already convicted of those. If you stand convicted in your, again, I don't like to use the word religious, but we can all relate to that, so I'm just going to go with it. If you stand convicted in your religious beliefs, could you be convicted of anything else? I'll wait for an answer on that one.
Okay, so divergence will eventually create societies.
Divergence will never be a registered corporation, but it will become a society. I hate that word. But let's just recognize what it is talking about. A massive group of people, subject and governed by a different set of rules. How do you create a society? I mean, a real one. Not just a digital online society that means nothing like Facebook. No, you actually go to your local member of parliament. You submit a private bill, a private act that creates your own private society. And within it, you set up all the rules and governing shit that society requires as agreed upon by all the members. You list all the members. You can include shit like, we are authorized to deal with securities. We're authorized to convert promissory notes. We're authorized to not be pulled over by cops for speeding. And then Parliament literally passes these private bills.
And would everybody have knowledge of these bills being passed, or would that also be private?
No, that's all private.
So only the people that know about
are a part of it. So when you hear of a secret society, all a secret society, like the Freemasons, for example, all they are is a group that have registered that group privately with the government, and they get their own fucking set of rules. Which is why these guys, these cats, never get in trouble. Because they're operating under a different society. You can't say, I'm from this society, but I'm going to pass through yours, and now I'm going to be subject to all your shit.
It's the whole alien thing.
Yes, it's the whole alien thing. But creating a society, and again, we'll find a replacement word for society because it tends to lead to social, which is socialism, which is communism. So, although, okay, let's just clarify that one right now. There are elements of communism that I like. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the entire thing is good if the leadership is tight and on the money. Then the state owning everything and just providing to people in an abundance, what the fuck's wrong with that? It's actually better. The state controls what corporations can do and cannot do. Not like in democracy, they let the corporations rule everything. Communism's a little different. But again, you put a prick or an asshole in charge, then it goes right to shit.
Okay, so speaking of pricks and assholes, what are we... were you just mentioning about what Divergence would do with these people and how we would nominate them differently?
We could literally express an interest in someone's life estate if they don't know how. Create that life estate and have them compelled to do certain things. Such as, how do you think the government is going to force people here to get the needle? Well, it's the same idea. They're administrating their life estate.
Based on them being incapacitated.
Based on them being incapacitated, they can't do it, so the government rolls in and does it for you. So, if we don't like a certain group of assholes, we could literally nominate them to go live on an island with a big fucking wall around it, never to be seen from again. Do we have that power? Yes, we do. And I was just talking to Jody about this. There was a black woman, hefty girl, but man, did she know some stuff. She was arguing with someone online on Facebook or something, and she basically came out and said, look, continue to piss me off and I'll liquidate your estate and I will fuck you over till the end of time. And you can't stop me because of this, that, and the other. And this woman talked for like 5 to 10 minutes. So this woman was fluent. I mean, like almost like she came out of a government office somewhere because she knew stuff. And I don't know who this woman was. I saw that video once and then I never saw it again. But again, piss us off, and we have the ability to exercise powers that you may not find appropriate for your well-being, but we certainly think it is.
Because we got shit to do. This is not going up and taking your money to buy boats and mansions.
Yes.
This is to get work done that needs to be done.
And because you've expressed no interest in getting the work done, maybe at the very least you've expressed an interest in houses, boats, and cars. The point is that you have not utilized the gifts you were given. You have no interest in it. Again, this is where the government just says, okay, well, if you've abandoned your shit, we certainly know the value of it, so we will administrate it on your behalf. We would technically have the same power to do the same thing to people.
But for good.
Or bad. According to them. It might be bad that they get taken to an island with a big wall around it, but for us it's very good.
Right.
We need to contain the shit. That's all that this is. You may not think you're a piece of shit, but here's a list of facts that say otherwise. And this is all a judge is looking at. You're dead on paper. You came in here committing fraud with dirty hands, claiming to be dead, trying to profit from being dead, and you're an asshole on top of it. No, yeah, that's enough cause to send you to the wall. Just like in Game of Thrones. You're forgiven for all your shit, whether you killed people, raped, stole, all of that. You're forgiven of all that, but you're sent to the wall.
To serve out
your time and to never be heard from again because you're a fucking goof.
You're offline.
You're offline. Is that equitable? Fucking rights it is.
Or you can choose to take a certain injection and go right home right away.
Scripture talks about when mom and dad have a problem with little Billy. Little Billy's been so bad, mom and dad can't do fuck all with little Billy anymore. Little Billy gets brought before the elders. Mom and dad say, you know what, elders, this child is unruly, he's out of control. Guess what the elders have the power to do? Put that child to death. It's in Scripture. Continue to be an asshole. This is the beautiful thing about the digital community. There's no accountability to fuck all. Yeah, you have to do something pretty fucking out there to have the FBI show up at your house. But otherwise, even if you had a TV show, otherwise, the unaccountability lets assholes run amok and fuck things over for good people. So again, am I all for the wall? Fucking rights I am. Absolutely. Get rid of the filth. And that's what the military is for. Getting rid of the filth. They have a digital online history of every fucking thing you've done, said, thought. You either are going to pass the test or you're not, based on your behavior. And if you don't like it, too fucking bad for you. You should have done something about it years ago. But no, you still choose to be a dick. Whether it's artificial intelligence or algorithms or Christ himself. Me showing up and saying, fuck you, you're going to the wall. I don't care what you say. Done. Sentence passed. He who passes the sentence shall swing the sword. Oh, I got no problem there.
And that's what people don't realize is that they're being judged right now.
Absolutely. Someone has to judge, other than the judges you see with the black robes and the wigs on their head, okay? That's not what the return of Christ was. We're not talking about those judges. We're talking about the people walking the streets, doing and practicing equity. He who seeks equity must do it. So if you're doing equity, who gets to pass judgment? I do. And if you don't like that, go complain to Scripture. Simple.
Because a spiritual test is not going to be like one in high school. All of a sudden
No.
you sit in a little chair and Jesus shows up in front of you and goes, okay, Mary, are you ready? Let's see if you're a good person. Oh, yes, Jesus, I am. I'm such a good person.
Yeah, wrong. You were tested this morning, and now you're being presented your results. The whole trick here is
You've been tested the whole time since you got here.
The whole trick here is to be tested when you didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is why. You might be a good person over here, but what do you do when you know no one's watching?
Exactly.
Is that when you're skinning cats alive?
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you're putting
Hurting children?
Is that when you're putting children under the stairs?
Yeah.
But then you leave your home with your spiffy outfit and your smile and your updo hair system, and you go to church and you're a good person. Yeah, right.
Wolves in sheep's clothing.
Again, another nominee for the wall. So point to this whole conversation was our society will have the power to deal with
Filth.
And our society will be outside of their society, which means you are instantly protected. How do you leave that society? Well, fucking create your own. Dean's been talking about it for years, but he doesn't know how. He doesn't know what I'm talking about. He thinks it's just you get a group of people together that share common ideas and you go about your business. No. You got to get shit passed through Parliament. You have to have a parliamentary...
To make big change.
Yes, to have big change, to be truly left alone. Mm-hmm. Dean's plan is still weak. It's strong in many regards, but it's still full of holes. You have to have these private members, private bills, private acts of Parliament passed. And then guess what you can start to claim to be? Private. Mm-hmm. Until that shit happens, we're still kind of public.
Still kind of dead.
Because all they can say, all they need for evidence to prove you're not who you claim to be is, okay, show us the evidence of your society. Where is it?
And what defines a society?
And where is it? And who drafted it? And who are its members? And what are the terms and conditions of it? What's its term length? Who's going to manage this thing? What are its capabilities? Right? And on and on and on and on. I'll post one of these private agreements for just us. Maybe on the Die Live. Just to show that these things are possible. But yes, once you have your own society, how much of a stretch would it be now to have your own country, to have your own province, to have your own state?
You have
your own money, you have your own currency. When you have enough people, and I'm thinking it's probably only going to be 100. You can have 100 fucking private individuals with access to their estate living together.
Changing the world.
That would be one of the most powerful nations on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Very elite. You want to talk elite?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what that gentleman is saying there. Actually, I didn't even check his name with the video above. Actually, we're still listening to it. However, he is unawares of all the things that we are talking about, especially the voice message I just put up about 3 minutes ago. There are avenues to escape all of this. Of course there is. But again, this is what Christ's second coming was to do. Otherwise, Satan was going to take over. So this gentleman is alluding to the fact that, oh, Satan's well on his way to be taken over. But who shows up at the last minute to save the day? Us. And again, for the churchers out there, if you think Christ reappears or returns as a single man or woman, you missed it. He's done that once, twice, probably even 5 times now. Do you think that a single man or woman was going to appear to take on Satan and all his minions the way that the Bible talks about? How about if 100,000 of us Christ-like beings show up? Do you see how that evolved? Do you see how that's much, much better than the other versions? Do you see how it grew? Do you see how it was more encompassing? Do you see how much more powerful that is?
Think about that one for a minute, loved ones.
We're leaving the generator because we are more powerful, and I can prove it. Based on a loved one's comment just moments ago, Ravina, namely, Queen in our eyes, the moon in perfect alignment with the stars would compel one to believe who's paying attention to realize this. When mom delivered you, right? One step. Second step. What does mom also deliver to you? It comes in the mail. Look at the word delivered for a moment. If you want to start doing some research into livery and livery of sizen, things of this nature. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, there's one or three. Point being, break the word delivery down, or deliver, or de-live. If you're de-living, what are you? If mom set up 2 out of the 3 steps for us, thanks, Eve. Still like that, are you, mom? Really? We show up at step 3 and do what? We complete the triangle, do we not? We accept and agree and consent to the stage she set, all while being deceived by who? Masquerading as what today? The government. All because we were tricked into doing what we did. Loved ones who are listening to this, and for all those to come, take a moment, connect the dots. Love you. The concept of the higher authority the legal realm has copied or created a shadow of the natural world, the natural realm, being that of equity, the spirit and intent of the commandments, etc. It's all throughout Scripture. Satan has reverse engineered Scripture to come up with a plausible plan to keep us all ensnared by not following natural law and us volunteering thereso to do. With respect to the truth is, we are responsible for all projections and cannot impart another's words to achieve success. All of these words of wisdom are coming from Scripture, right? They're all coming from the Creator. They're all coming from higher wisdom or higher authority than us at this given a moment in time. So imparting with another's words really is actually saying that we are taking for our own use and using them, right? Because if we are parting with those words, then we're not using them. If we are imparting from them, we are technically using them. Obedient, we're going to look at obedience as being faithful, being subservient, to that greater, higher power that we're all following. Are we subservient to a man-created government that we have unwillingly begrudged ourselves with, or are we following something greater? Again, the legal system is deriving all of its authority from us breaking that higher authority. If we'd stuck to that natural order, there would be no legal system whatsoever. So we're close, but staying on the right path here is very, very, very important, clearly. Technically, Scripture is saying, hey, if you're not being obedient to the Creator, you better be obedient to men's government and don't get caught in the middle, because that's not a fun ride. So we're supposed to choose sides, and we all chose unwisely. And for those that awaken to this choice and so seek to choose to do better, we're afforded that liberty. We're afforded that grace, that redemption. It's called mercy, and only a judge can grant it. The Attorney General can't. The Lieutenant Governor does through the judges. The Governor General does through the judges. Again, a very, very complex system we got going on here, but really, simply, it's perfect. Good early day, loved ones. for today's segment, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to actually just read the questions and answer on the fly. So as a disclaimer, I have not looked at any of these questions moving forward because I think this is just going to be easier. You just is going to go with the flow, all right? Okay, so this one's to Judy. So is it worth doing the silent stand outside the Governor General's house, as Karen Brewer suggests, with the Hansard and call for the writs? You know what, Judy? I don't mind the public awareness stuff, such as the protesting. Dean, my brother there, he does a fantastic breakdown on protesting. There are, let's just say, goods and bads with doing that. We can go into that in a little minute. And call for the writs. Here's the thing. The writs are issued through the courts. The judges are appointed federally by the Governor General. So even though the Governor General has the power to appoint judges, they don't really hear matters. Here's another twist on that. The chancellors sure do hear matters. And who are the chancellors? Well, the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor General. They're both chancellors. I think one's considered a vice chancellor. So the Lieutenant Governor would be the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor would be the Governor General. Now, who are the Chancellors? Well, if you have any familiarity with the Game of Thrones TV show, the King's right hand, right? The Queen Daenerys had, little Targ, what was his name there? Anyway, little Lannister guy. The right hand of the king or queen. The right hand of the king or queen is the chancellor. When the king and queen are busy doing king and queen things, who's running the realm? Who's running the kingdom? Who's holding court? Who's hearing petitions, claims, affidavits? That is all the chancellors. Now they get so busy, they have to then appoint assistants and judges and masters and magistrates and everything to run the entire ship. So, okay, so to directly answer the question more so, is it worth doing these protests outside the Governor General's door? You know what I'm going to suggest? I'm going to suggest no. I'm going to suggest send in some paperwork to the Chief Justice of your province or your territory. Explain and demand the writ from him or her, and show cause why. And show cause why your hearing cannot be heard in the public because there is no such remedy for it. And because of all that, you have a conflict with the rules at law, and therefore the rules of equity shall prevail. That will be provided in every court's rule book on the planet. So you see what you've just done. You've actually just achieved what it is you're seeking. You're going to get your writs. Again, writs are very important documents. They're what comes out of chancery, or equity if you want to call it. They're not just little legal orders. Writs are much more encompassing. They are much more powerful. They're almost, they're comparable to decrees, if you want to consider it that. That's how you want to get to the root of the problem and get it dealt with. If you want to be on TV and, create all these circuses and, disturb the peace a little bit and and maybe give the cops a reason to show up with horses and hit you with sticks and tear gas. I mean, protests are fantastic for things like that. However, here's Dean's quick nutshell. Instead of 1 million people showing up for a march one day, what if that 1 million people invested the $100, and Dean does a very good job of explaining this one. That man or woman who took the day off work to go protest, had to arrange babysitters, missed the day of work, yada, 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 lost, let's just say, invested more than $100 to go to the protest. If that 1 million people invested $100, you could be buying land. And when you're buying land with that kind of capital, you can be doing some serious ass stuff. Problem is that no one is trustworthy enough to organize such things. Despite my brother's incredible accolades, there's still a lot of people out there that think he's, off his rocker, and they wouldn't trust him as far as they can throw him. I received the same treatment. But again, the stone throwers are none of our concern. Point being, someone has to take up I don't want to call it a burden, but somebody has to take up the determination to lead such things. Be a leader. And that's why I'm suggesting, loved ones, that I'm not going to lie, I have incredible leadership skills. But do I want to do all this by myself? No. This is why we're doing the Queen's School. This is where, foundationally, I want to change an incredible karmic disorder or
imbalance that I feel is out there in the world today. Women have never been given the shot that they deserve. Allegedly, they come from rib of man, but that doesn't diminish their qualities in any respect. As a matter of fact, why isn't that promoted instead of demoted? Again, men have done a fantastic job at fucking things right up. So it's time for the ladies to take a stab at some pretty big, serious stuff. And I'm talking in an organized fashion where these women understand the teachings of Scripture or understand the teachings of the writings of the prophets of their culture and where they are from whatever part of the world. Even if it's alien, that would actually still apply. See, this is where equity actually is so kick-ass. If it's good and it makes sense and it's good for everybody and it's da-da-da-da-da, then it should be, and then it's technically equitable. Would it not be? So there you go. If it rolls across someone's desk that, yeah, this is well, the way we ought to do it, then boom, that's technically a maxim. So the queens and other ladies and loved ones out there, this is where I'm driving this whole initiative. Everyone thinks that I'm out here to screw everybody. No, I'm out here to put, let's say, 24 women together globally, whose jobs it is to run the planet. I feel that they are much more emotionally connected. I feel that they are capable of doing a better job. I feel they ought to be given a chance. And for whatever man disagrees with me out there, I would question your manhood. Okay, so Karen Brewer suggesting that we go and protest outside of the Governor General's house. Yeah, okay, again. Now, don't get me wrong. Here's where I'm going to offset that earlier comment. The energy that is created at some of these protests, the support, the fear, it is such a high-frequency event. So that part I absolutely love to see. Problem is that we got so many shills and trolls out there nowadays, paid by billionaires, part of the elite group that are here to just eat us, essentially, spiritually, physically, and otherwise. They insert these people to start grabbing bricks and throwing bricks around, and you know what, they just create such a mess. So as good as the protests are, I mean, why do you think the militaries are rolling out all these heavy armored vehicles all over the world at the same time? Yeah, you know, if you want to drop 10 million people in the streets, you know, ultimately, yes, the military should be backing down, correct? But here's the problem. When the military knows you're all acting in person, when the military knows that you're all sinners, when the legal system recognizes that the legal system is trying to rebel against itself, it will provide a remedy in self-preservation. It will sacrifice 1 million people in the street to preserve itself. So we got to be careful with the protest, loved ones. I'm going to suggest that we do other alternatives and just make them much more effective, much quicker, and then we can actually get into a position where we actually have the power to affect the change we want to, and then there will be no need for protests. Okay, moving on through this one. Okay, so there's some of my thoughts. Or are these rallies a distraction? Well, again, they're going to be accomplishing both things. That time and energy could be served better elsewhere if people were only given the means and shown how to do it. But that's not as satisfying as walking down a street in defiance from a tyrannical government, arm in arm, trying to, you know, defend liberty. I know how that feels. Dean and I are some of the forerunners here, loved ones, if you want to think back. So do I love that energy as well? Yes. So again, this is more of a personal thing. I'm going to suggest, you know what, do a little bit of both, but then do a lot of the first one, because that's where you're going to get a lot of your answers and actual remedies. And okay, so will this approach only work once we deal in equity? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, we're dealing in equity, like I said. We're going to seek equity and do equity by going to the judges who the Governor General appoints to hear our claims, to hear our matters, and to prove them properly, and then to be awarded the remedy that we're seeking. Imagine walking out of court or getting off the phone call with the judge or the master where they have agreed that you have shown enough cause. A master's now going to take up your case, and he's going to go do some digging, she or he, and they're going to put together some stuff, and they're going to segregate, and they're going to marshal, and they're going to sequester accountings, and they're going to provide all that in a report, and they're going to send that to the judge so the judge can rule on it. And guess what that ruling is? It's incredibly favorable for you, all from the comfort of your kitchen. So again, at this point, Judy, it's whatever, lights that fire under you and gets you all excited. Do a little bit of both, do one or the other, but do something. That's all I'm asking, is get involved. And Judy, I know you do. And so we all love you for that. All right? Take care now. Okay, Aroa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I did not, please forgive me. Okay, so thank you for the messages. Words are very important. Yeah, they are, exactly. Obedience is a legal word. We are careful about the words we use. Yeah, you could interpret it as such. However, I will actually post a quick pic here for everyone real quickly. I know the word obedience is used, I believe, in the King James Version a multitude of times, to the point where I think obedient is used 20 times approximately, and obedience is used approximately 63 times. So, and then I'll pull a quick definition from Black's Law. And when Jody had done that, when I asked in the very first sentence, obedience is talking about essentially following commands. So again, if you want to use your dog as an analogy, your dog is obedient to the master, correct? Your master or the master issues commands and the dog responds. Okay, so what commands have we been given? Have we chosen to respond or not? Are we obedient right there, or are we disobedient? And there's nothing to do with the legal system, right? Like, that's pretty clean. So again, don't feel like our ovaries or our testicles have been removed when I suggest that we are obedient. I love the approach where, you know what, there is a greater something out there than us, even if it does wind up being a version of us up there, or out there, or in there, or down there, wherever the there is. So now it's just a matter of being obedient to that greater energy, that higher frequency, not being subject to that low, dark vibration. All right. Again, I have no problem publicly saying that I am obedient to teachings greater than I feel like I'm currently in control of or have power with. This is where the learning and the always wanting and desiring more knowledge. That's why that is. I'm obedient to that. Again, obedient, I'm looking at the word obedience as severely determined. I'm so obedient to such and such. I'm so determined to get to the bottom of all this stuff, all this truth regarding equity in the legal system. I'm obedient to that. I'm obedient to love my neighbor. I'm obedient to treat the dogs and the cats with respect and dignity. I am obedient to helping the planet. I'm obedient. Again, we can talk about these specific wordings, but the most important thing here is, yes, I do agree with you, my friend. Words are so critical, so much more important than we could have ever thought when we were children in school. I mean, whether you enjoyed your language arts classes or not, again, this was all for good reason. And how do I know this? Well, again, I have firsthand knowledge. I didn't graduate high school. I did all right in English. Didn't do all that well in math, science. Science was okay. Failed art, believe it or not, all the time. Why? Because I was better than the teacher. Why would I listen to the teacher? There's an example right there of my disobedience. Boom. I'm in grade 5. I can draw, sculpt, paint better than the teacher. Would I pay attention in that class or not? What would you do? See? And then I started to see things from there. Point being, okay, I'm not going to get into that. But point being, moving on here. We are careful about the words we use. We try to do as little paperwork as possible. Yeah, definitely agree. We've come a long way in that regard. The most important part of it all is it is illegal to use a legal name. Okay, just let me throw a quick tidbit on this one. Illegal to use the legal name. I know that's been said for a number of years now, and I know that appeared on some billboards in Europe somewhere. You didn't see much of that in North America, as far as I know. But let's just look at that word use real quick. Use implies options, right? There's one way to use something, and then you can use a hammer to cut plywood, or you can use a hammer to fasten plywood. See, it depends on the use. So just let me elaborate a little bit. It is illegal to use a legal name. How about it is illegal to use a legal name illegally? See the difference there? What if you used a legal name equitably? Would that be illegal? See how it starts to switch? Here's why. Here, let me expand a little more. It's illegal to use a legal name by claiming it as yours without expressing a trust around it, without telling the issuer of that certificate or that surname what your intent is going to be. It is not my intent to use your name, Her Majesty, for my profitability. I'm going to use that name for charitable purposes. So I'm going to actually use it for good. I'm not going to use it for greed. So now if you're using it for good, does that actually constitute illegality? See, that's a bit of a, an interesting dance. Okay, moving forward. I do not believe in an external God personally. The power to create is the I am. Yeah, absolutely. The external God, the internal God, I guess that's where that kind of story is going to go. Yeah, I'm going to say, you know what, it's going to be at the end of the day, would it not be just one and the same thing? The internal is the external and vice versa, sorry. Again, there's so much duality and stuff out there that we're just starting to wake up to now. How do you have something outside without something inside? Do you see that interesting relationship there? But yeah, I do agree with you, my friend. Ourselves, our own state of being, our consciousness as the greater power, does that cut the mustard? Absolutely. Are there others out there? I'm going to suggest so. Are there other powers that are even greater than that out there? You know what? We're going to find out here real soon. The intention permeates the entire bodily structure to affect the change within, is indigenous to our lands. We do not have any Jesus. We have another gentleman here, and for some reason I can't hold the record button and scroll up in your message. So I'm going to stop this one here, scroll down, and then continue with the message. That's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt, loved ones, but you know what? This is me continuing the Divergence live segment. So all of the liveness is, I hope, appreciated. As a matter of fact, you're going to see I'm going to start texting a lot less. I'm actually going to try to cut that right out. Okay, but did I get to enough of the meat and potatoes here? The intention permeates the entire bodily structure to the effect of the change within. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Now, having clean intent is going to build a clean foundation or a clean temple or a clean state of consciousness. When we have intent of, let's just say, greed or lust or gluttony or any of those other things, then yeah, absolutely, what we're laying down is going to start creating problems for us. And then we're not even really going to understand why we have a life full of problems, because we weren't smart enough to realize, hey, whatever I'm manifesting, the words coming out of my mouth, the words coming out of the tips of my fingers when I'm hitting keyboards, these all have an impact. These are all transmissions. Something or someone out there is receiving these things. If you think that your thoughts do not have an effect, you're wrong. The power's in the word, yeah, of course. But our thoughts are pretty darn powerful as well. It's a whole other state of consciousness that we're just starting to unravel now. Again, where do you have the words before you have the consciousness to create them? I'm going to suggest no. You see the words in your mind before your mouth speaks them. Although you can tell in a lot of people that's not quite the case, right? Like they'll speak before they think. And look what that usually results in. So this is why I'm suggesting, loved ones, slow down until you get very good at articulating words and feelings and emotions. More Queen School training. This is what these lovely ladies are going through. I've sat in on a couple of these meetings in the background, and I've watched a few of their videos after they're done. And you know what? I've said this in the past too. Boys and men out there, the men, what these ladies are doing, I think a lot of men would find very challenging. Yeah, they may not be able to bench press as much as you do, but you know what? When it comes down to start sharing your feelings publicly, and sharing your feelings and being vulnerable, and talking about situations and things that have happened to you that are maybe very personal and are very, they're traumatic. I don't see a lot of men out there at their level. And why is that? Well, because some people, yours truly, have seen a lack of that display of affection in most men. Okay, we're getting there. We're coming around. We're able to start connecting with our feelings and talking about them now. But you know what? Weren't we the ones programmed to go out into the bush and bring animals back? Okay, well, we're not expressing our animals to the, we're not expressing our feelings to the animals or the trees while we're out in the bush. That's just not something we were doing. So who got really good at it, right? So this is why I'm suggesting this new era for man, womankind moving forward is conscious-based. It's feeling-based. It's not paper-based. It's not based on how many zeros you have in your bank account. That has nothing to do with it. So we're trying to create some alignments here. We're trying to create some energies for the planet so that the planet and whoever's watching us can actually see progress. This is all the stuff that the scriptures and the other religious texts around the world are trying to teach us. How to become better. How to strive and desire more. How to become more obedient unto love. I'm obedient to love. Does that sound like I'm being subservient or I just got my balls chopped off? Again, men out there, you're going to find an incredible power that you've had the whole time. But our ego gets in the way. And again, the ego, as the Queens and Jody have mentioned, is essentially an underdeveloped soul. It needs work. It needs attention. It needs time. It needs input. It needs feelings, energy to help that thing grow. Because when our ego and our superego and our id, I remember that stuff from school, when all these things, and I don't even know what half those are anymore, when all of these things, though, do come into balance and alignment, what happens? When we find places of peace, do we not feel settled? And when you're settled, are you not much more capable? Ask any professional fighter. You know, these guys stay calm and reserved. These guys are in control. As soon as you lose control, you don't have it. And if you don't have control, somebody else does. And you lose. Okay, I think I've covered that pretty good. Okay, I'm going to check out here and I'm going to scroll up and we're going to continue with loved ones here. All right. Okay, so the loved one continues here with, another spiritual entity, and then another one connected to Earth directly, Mana, and the God for us is our ground of dominion. Absolutely, I agree with that one. Or another way to look at that is a grant of dominion. Because if you want to break this down in terms of a quick lesson with equity in the legal system, mom and dad created something, it's you. Mom and dad granted something to the state that happened to be a name. The state now attaches a surname to it. So now the state is the grantee of the thing, the power, the rights, the dominion. They're holding it temporarily. Why? Because mom and dad as grantees did not come as grantor and set up a trust properly. They just gave the name right back to the state naked. They didn't know what to do. And that's why I don't hold them responsible or accountable at all. It's taken some very sharp minds with the help of the internet to actually start unraveling this whole thing. Mom and dad and grandma and grandpa certainly did not have that at their disposal. Okay, so I'm going to suggest, grant of dominion, because now the state that is holding our dominion is about to grant it back to us. And once they grant it back, and now again, we can take it for granted. We don't even really need the state to grant it to us. We can take it for granted, loved ones. All you got to do is express it. They're technically, truly not even holding our dominion. You've had it the whole time. You can take it for granted whenever you want. But we all just choose not to because we don't know how to, or we don't even know if such a thing is a possibility. So, but yeah, I definitely do agree with you here, my friend. I don't use the word God very often. I prefer source or father or that type of thing. I stand scenario. I looked at your guys' process and was friends with Anna down in Dunedin, but I saw those security agreements as too complex. No paperwork can work if the place from where you stand is not the inherent authority. So many on the subjective law side here are trying to do that with all sorts of processes and getting nowhere. Yeah, totally, I agree. But here's the thing. the way I'm looking at it, as these security agreements and these administrative agreements, they are essentially the bindings that hold the trustees together to do their jobs. Now, I'm just going to suggest, it is complex. Absolutely, it was meant to be complex. That was not to be a simple one, and here's why. A lot of times, I'm going to look at it like this: is the simple capable of the complex? I'm going to say no. Is the complex capable of simple? I'm going to say yes. Because the complex just has more stuff to it. It has more ability. It has more tools it can operate with. It can come up with the simple. The complex doesn't need to stay complex, is what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that the complex has more available to do simple things. That complex structure may have enough stuff in it to perform a multitude of simple things, whereas the one simple thing does not actually affect or cause to happen all of those other complicated things. And again, this is where, being an artist and being a bit of a perfectionist and being very determined in everything I do, for me, spiritually, personally, emotionally, physically, everything I do, everything I stand for, if I'm before a judge and the judge asks me, did you write this? I can say yes. And if the judge says, Darren, can you give me a simple sentence, or can you give me a simpler version of this? I can say yes. Now, to me, that's important. That may not be important to everybody else out there, which is why we're providing the complex versions and the simple versions. So this is where, again, you've heard me talk recently about simplifying everything. And again, this is where I would now call upon you, my friend, here to help aid and assist those with, simpler words. Because that's what we're doing next. We want to boil this down so that, 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds can get their heads comprehended around these subject matters. Would a 5-year-old understand or understand my security agreement? Not a chance. I know that. So that's why we're developing the Equity Crayon School. Crayons as in, we want to take this down to KïnderGardën levels. And again, that's why we got the KïnderGardën program on the run right now. These mechanisms are to help to simplify things. Because I know not everyone's going to understand the wordings and the verbiages that I do use and I do throw around. It is ridiculous that it even had to get to that point. But here's why I did it. Here's the crux of it. When the judge asked me, did you write this and why? I want him to know I have a greater understanding and a greater comprehension and a greater ability to take every word in there and explain it if I have to, because I can. Technically, though, that security agreement was an act of Parliament, of public legislation, that I cut and paste the whole frickin' act into the body of the document. Why? Again, it's for the trustees. I'm granting that to them. I'm assigning that to them. I'm not personable anymore. They are. So here's your rules. Here's your regulations. And because we sort of know what's going on, we can sort of have an expectation of your performance. So that if you contact us and say, no, sorry, the trustee's not bound or obligated to follow any orders of the security entitlement holder, I can say, really, because that's contrary to Section 53 of the Such and Such Act, and in the lack of performance thereof, you're actually in breach of trust. And it's also in violation according to Section 29(1)(3) and 47(b)(3). So you mean just having a greater ability gives us more flexibility, because at the end of the day, as a builder, I want to have more tools and more materials to play with, to build stuff with. If I show up as a builder and all I have is sand, because sand is simple, I got to start looking for other stuff. If I go to Home Depot and walk out with all kinds of shit, I'm going to be much more capable, because the agreement, or the complex version of what's in the truck is more comprehensive. Yes. Okay. So again, this is a to each your own type of thing, though. Again, right now, I'm trying to simplify. I'm trying to attract others to this truth movement. I'm trying to, show this energy to others. And again, the technical stuff, I lose people instantly. Now, is that me being an effective teacher? No. But what is the student responding to? Is it the words, or is it my energy and my passion in those words? Are they excited to know what person actually means? Are they excited to know what, obedience actually means? Again, it's going to inspire them. And this is what all the prophetic leaders in the past have done. Christ included, and all the other major religions around the world. They have one or several entities that are here to inspire. That ultimately is one of my biggest directions, is to inspire people. I'll take rocks, I'll take stone throwing all day. I don't give a shit about that. If I inspire one individual today, I'll take shots from 10 others all day long. You see the karmic balancing I'm doing there? And you see the karmic significance that the queens are bringing to others out there? Spiritually, loved ones, you should see what these queens have gone through in the last 6 months. They will tell you firsthand. If you ever get the opportunity to peel one of these queens off to the side and ask her about what this has done, you might be impressed. I know there's been some flack out there online in the digital platforms about what we're doing. Well, you know what? Again, I have high expectations. Some of these loved ones didn't meet the expectations for what it is I'm actually trying to do right now. Take that in its context, though. What am I trying to do right now? Well, we're trying to put a bunch of women together that are capable administrators, that have all the equity answers, relatively speaking. They have a fantastic grip on the legal system. They know how to create a trust. They know how to pick up the phone and speak to the Attorney General live if they need to. They know how to walk into court and lay smackdown for a judge. That's what the Queen's School is all about. It's all of these things and more. But spiritually, that's the more significant component here right now. The spiritual growth that these women are going through. Again, I've been brought to tears a number of times, and I'm no stranger to pain. As a construction worker, I'm usually bleeding every day. So, point being, just because you're physically tough does not mean you're emotionally tough. Two different types of tough. And for what I see these lovely ladies going through, spiritually, wow, is about all I can say. So again, kicking on with answering the question here. Boy, I'm getting sidetracked, but you know what, this is fun, so we're going for it. Yeah, so again, my friend, I do agree that our system is complex, but once we nut this out and we get the final versions rolling, I shit you not, we will have this down to a paragraph or 2/3 of a page. Now, they recommend 2/3 of a page because in some of the orders that the court rules are asking for, it says that it must be minimum 2/3 of a page. There actually has to be some context to what you're talking about. And they've actually established you can't pull this all off in 2 sentences. So there has to be a little bit of depth and scope to it. So anyway, we're getting there. Getting nowhere, as they did not pay attention to the fact that Parliament bought the entire judiciary under their control, so only those on the substantive sides have standing as such. I'm going to have to scroll down here for a minute. But yeah, I do agree. The subjective side, yes. The subjective matter, the subject matter, the proofs. When you bring the proof and you state your cause correctly, you can demand appropriate remedy. We are all entitled to get to the other side of the fence, or the greener side. They have not denied us that. That would be unconscionable. They cannot do it. The laws of the multiverse do not let them get away with it. Even Satan himself had to play by certain rules, believe it or not. So point being, that salvation is sitting there waiting for all of us. And all we had to do is exercise it. That is the reason we are all here. That is the reason to prove to Creator that model number 0100032210 is fantastic. Replicate it. Add it to this mix. Add it to that mix. And wow, are we going to create a super being here right away. Point being, all of this is not a waste of time. All of this is for a greater purpose. We came to this planet, this test planet, with amnesia for a reason. Did we rise? Did we overcome? Did we become as wise as serpents, but then gentle as lambs? So the other day when I said,
what gives me the right to judge assholes? Because I was a big asshole at one point in my life. And I got a whole bunch of people that can probably agree with it. So, see how you have to have experience in something to then claim to be able to judge that experience later? It all makes sense, right? How do you have no knowledge of a subject matter? How do you have no experience with a subject matter and then claim to have an opinion regarding it? See what I mean? Sit down, shut up. Doesn't work like that. So by claiming to have been an incredible asshole at one point in my life entitles me to now go find other assholes because I know what I'm looking for at a deeper level than most can comprehend. You want more stories? Talk to Jody. Talk to anybody else that knows me personally, what I'm actually capable of. Dean will tell you stories if you want. And he's one of the sharpest guys I know. Moving forward, okay, I got to kick this recording and we got to move down, scroll a little bit. Okay, loved ones, hang on. And to finish off, my friend, there, your closing remark with they failed to rebut the presumed citizenship. Oh, bingo. Huge. Anything we can do to start rebutting that. Claiming something otherwise. Expressing trust. Yada, yada, yada. Take your pick. I could probably come up with 1,000 things right now if I didn't have to go build stuff for us. Point being, yeah, that's right on the money. So how do we get out of that citizenship clause? Well, again, go to a judge, lay your claim out properly. He'll certainly entertain it. This is all part of the structure that we're bringing. This is all part of the simplification. There's going to be applications of this at all levels, which is why we're going to start building some scripts. We're going to start developing some paperwork that we're just going to have posted here. This is what you say to a cop. This is what you say to a judge. This is what you say to an attorney. This is what you say to your neighbor who stole your lawnmower, and so on. Now, we're going to keep this stuff simple, but there will be elements of it that are a little bit technical. See, I'm going to have to provide stuff for advanced, intermediary, and beginners, all at the same time. So that is an intricate balance that I believe I'm capable of doing. And I believe I'm able to show others how to do it. And I believe that with others' participation, like Carol's post coming up here, and just to give us a heads up on that because it's so long, as I'm holding down this record button, I can only see one screen at a time, right? So Carol, I might, forgive me here, but I might have to change just for that post how I'm going to record it. So I'm probably going to read your post and then pick it apart. I might do 2 or 3 recordings on yours and then moving on from there. But yeah, so thanks for your input there, my friend, because yeah, it sounds like you've done some homework and you know a thing or two, and I would consider you an asset, absolutely, as all of you, the rest of you. Anyone who's on this path, anyone who feels compelled and driven and wants to and desires more knowledge is a friend of mine. Not even having met you, I don't need to. I know you by your words. I know you by your actions. Sound familiar? Okay, loved ones. Okay, Carol, yeah, wow. Fantastic post. I'm kind of glad I read that whole thing in one shot without responding to it, and kind of regretful at the same time. There's a lot of meat in there, and whoever wrote that should be a part of this group. I agree with pretty much all of it. Severely so. Especially with the social conformist parts. Again, social insurance or social security, social anything is this communist manifesto. That's where socialism is coming from. It's disguised, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. We all think we're living in these free democratic countries, but we're not. We've all been deceived. We've all been tricked. If you want to know a fantastic little breakdown on just the deception of it, again, I recommend a good friend of ours, Marcus, at Servant King, info at Servant King, I think it is. Again, this gentleman laid some serious smackdown a number of years ago. That was incredibly eye-opening. Heavy hitter, this gentleman, full of love for him. We're actually going to be touching on some of his subjects and some of the stuff that he talked about in our Crayon program, because Marcus did do such a fantastic job with it. Probably one of the best. So, again, socialism, no thanks, right? With its current model of leadership, I would definitely say so. But you know what? Again, as I mentioned in another post here, I think it was even yesterday. Let's say socialism did have some good attributes, though. Should we consider those, and should we implement those into our new system? Such as, okay, does the state own everything? I like that idea, because then we go to the state, and the state fixes everything. The state provides, which, you know, if pricing is something that needs to be regulated, rather than having all these stores bickering and fighting about it, calling that a free democracy, and at the end of the day, doesn't the government just swoop in and control that anyway? So let's just let the government, and again, by government, I'm suggesting the new government, okay, people, loved ones, us, the us government, not the corporate one, the one where we're so friggin' wealthy because we've all tapped our treasury accounts, the consolidated revenue fund. And again, I know there's a lot of youngsters out there. These kids are claiming that these accounts don't exist. Really? You might want to do a little bit more homework, a little bit more searching. The consolidated revenue funds at the federal level, or the assurance funds at the provincial and territorial level, state level, are for what purposes? You know what they're for? It's the collective wealth of the people being held in trust. And whenever the government needs something, they just dip into those funds and take it, with the promise of, hey, if any rightful owners ever do show up, yeah, we'll return your money, if you want to call it money, with interest. And if we can't, we'll make other arrangements, but don't worry about it, we got you covered. Okay, so anyway, point being, you got a bunch, a multitude of loved ones that have an understanding of equity. They've actually got direct access to these treasury accounts now. They have the wealth to go build highways, schools, hospitals, things of this nature for the benefit of the greater public, if you want to call it that. So if the state rolled in and said, yeah, we're going to control that stuff, but the private citizens in the background, the private nationals in the background, the private individuals in the background are the ones as a group who are actually controlling the government. Does that not sound like a not bad version of what we got? It's like taking, you know, there were components of the democracy that are good. I'm going to suggest there are components of communism that are good. And I'm thinking that we just come up with a better system. But again, it's at the end of the day, it's all about who's behind the curtain, who's running this stuff. And that's where, you know, certain nefarious groups, I don't even want to name them, but they start with a J. They're trained out of, you know, Georgetown University, I believe, is one of them. And these individuals are very capable. They're very skilled. For example, I believe they are PhDs in math, physics, and law. I've heard stories about them being trained assassins. This group of individuals they take things pretty extreme. And is that for good measure? I guess we're going to find out here right away. But point being, it's the leadership that needs to be overhauled. It's these people in control that do feed on the living souls of the innocent. That's why this stuff is just so, you know, it's so shitty. People are naturally so trusting, and they're so desperate for attention, and they just want to be loved, and they just want to feel a part of something. So dark forces can so take advantage of any of those and just really wreck a person's life, an individual's life. So this is why I'm suggesting, you know, once we start eliminating the greed by creating abundance, when we have abundance, we don't have greed anymore. We all have our own lawnmowers. What do you need mine for? I see yours is running just fine, but if you claim you still need mine, you know what? If you can actually show me that you can push a lawnmower with the left hand and the right hand in a controlled fashion and get your lawn cut twice as fast, I'm going to say, shit, brother, that's pretty good. And here, go ahead, use my lawnmower, but come and talk to me about it. And again, at the end of the day, if it does wash out that this gentleman needed my lawnmower more than I did, I'm not going to have a problem with that. Because equity says, well, if I've been disposed of a lawnmower, I'm entitled to go down to Home Depot and just get another one. Why? Because it's not mine either. It belongs to the crown. It belongs to the state. It belongs to the government. Let them own it. Again, this kind of ties back into that other comment there about the way we used the name. Well, we used it improperly. What if we use that name properly? Is it still illegal? I'm going to throw it out there that it's not. If you identify the parties, express a trust, create the terms and conditions, it's not illegal anymore. Problem is that we went running off with that thing, not doing it properly. That's what makes it illegal.
So that statement is a little misleading, and it's a little leading at the same time. It's kind of interesting, but at least it's getting something done. Continuing here. So yeah, Carol, fantastic post. Whoever that gentleman or man or lady is, I'm not even sure. But I do agree with all of that. And I do think there is a lot of room here for improvement. And I think that it's us that has been chosen to do it. I don't see any other miracles being performed out there in the world right now. Do you know why? Because his return hasn't happened yet, truly. Has it? How will we know when his return has actually happened? Won't we start seeing little miracles going off everywhere? Won't we see the evil being slayed? Won't we feel the resonance of this planet increase? Won't there be some type of evidence? Of course there will. This is what we're talking about. All of us coming forward with Christ consciousness, doing great things with access to incredible wealth, with charitable hearts in mind. Clean frickin' hands. No presence of greed, no presence of malice, no presence of hate, no presence of sin. Geez, loved ones. Sure sounds like prophecy to me. Okay, I'm going to have to kick off this recording and scroll down. But yeah, the moral cowards, the consciousness that gentleman or lady was talking about, fantastic. Beautiful. I wish that guy or woman was on our Divergence Live here. Has a lot to offer. Moving on. Hey, thanks, Rob. That post on the Gospel of Thomas is something definitely worth looking into. I know there's another book there, a book of Thoth, or Thoth, or Thoth, or Thoth. Is another good one. I've put eyeballs on that. Have put eyeballs on Enoch. Again, you know, when the scriptures are claiming that this is the complete works of the book, I'm going to have a hard time swallowing that one. Again, the commoner version. The version for the man and woman out there that are awake. They can sniff the breadcrumbs. They can follow the trail. They can find the salvation. And when they do, they're also going to come across these other books in the process, or shortly thereafter, because they've proven themselves worthy. Again, here's the most incredible, one of the most incredible things, you know, that we're coming to realize now. Public citizens are not trustworthy. They cannot create trusts, nor can they be trusted. Do you know why? They're incapacitated. They can't create a trust. They're showing up with a mask on their face. They're imposters. They're fraudsters. This is what that using the illegal name is illegal. That is what I'm referring to at this point. Yes, when you show up in person, that's you acting illegally. Isn't this a mind fuck? It's crazy, right? But point is, there's all kinds of books out there that are going to be coming to light that we all need to be taking a quick peek at. And again, Rob, yeah, thanks for throwing that one up there, buddy. Okay, moving on. Nice drops there, Big Kahuna. Yeah, my friend. It's pretty cut and pasted and pretty easy to lay out right there. I mean, I know that's a little bit technical and a little bit wordy and a little bit, you got to read that a couple of times, right? But you start to get a vibe for it. The fictions do play a critical role in commerce. We do need them. Somebody has to be the trustee. Someone has to manage all this stuff. Someone has to actually enjoy all this stuff. So yeah, identifying the parties. There are temporary deeds in place. The fact that we never showed up to express an interest in this abandoned property is a form of deed. Our lack of deed is a deed. Get it? See, this is why coming forward now and expressing a deed is so important. Excuse me. The deed of trust. There's a good one. Title these things what you want, but you know what? Show me before you send it in, because, yeah, all right. Point being, that security agreement was an extension of our deed of trust. The administrative agreement is a component of our trust expression. I'm taking it to extreme lengths because I want to be able to sort of the judge. Yeah, look how capable the first handful of people that made it through technically or truly are. Look, they can actually speak to all of this, and they have the ability to make it simple if they need to. They are more prepared, right? They are experienced. And this experience comes from reading, from getting up, from going to court, from getting pulled over by police on the roadside and knowing what to say. Again, I approached an officer coming out of Starbucks one day, and as he approached me in the parking lot, and as I'm walking right towards him, I walked right up to him and put my hand on his right shoulder as he's carrying his coffee. And I said, "Friend, what would you say if you pulled me over on the side of the road and I had this to say?" I got about 20 words into it, he starts laughing.
30 words into it, and he says, okay, what was the silver coin for? 40 words into it, he's laughing as he's walking away. So there you go. I mean, it's just a matter of how do we express this stuff. Come with love, come with sugar. Do that first and foremost. And yeah, Big Kahuna, some good words in there. Voidable deeds. That means it's revocable. That means you can change it. That means you can trump it with something better. That's you blowing your own trumpet, if you want to call it that. That's you signaling to the watchers that, hey, I'm alive. I figured it out. I've just overcome. Allow me to blow my trumpet, please. I mean, I'm just throwing that one out there to paint mental pictures. But yeah, the fiction, that which was assumed, pretended, the legal assumption that something is true, which is or may be false. Okay, well, which one is it? Unfortunately, it's been defaulted to the false position because we haven't come forward to express the true version. Now again, can we simply express a deed of trust in 3 sentences? I'm going to say yes, we can. But you're going to have to use some pretty significant words in those 3 sentences to pull off everything that you're supposed to be pulling off. Why? Because the judges don't want us coming back every other week saying, oh shit, and I forgot this, and oops, I forgot that. I need to amend. You know what? Let's just come in hard and heavy, simple if need be, but let's just not leave a lot on the table. And again, by making our proper claims, by proving an equity to exist, and then claiming such an equity, and then such equity is just. Again, I love that triplicate. Start getting some stuff written down, loved ones. Use my examples. Do your own digging. Go on Googly and try to find versions of trust deeds. You know what? And just go find, again, the scenarios or the subject matters of what you're going to find online aren't going to line up with your particular circumstance, but just look at the wording, look at the structure, look at what's repeating, look at the critical components of creating a trust. Gibson's book, Pomeroy's books, Joseph's story, again, the list goes on. These gentlemen, these purveyors of equity, these equity masters really, have laid down so much material for us. It was just a matter of us picking it up and using it or not. And again, I thank my lucky stars and all my blessings that I have this ability to do what I do every day. And I'm very thankful and grateful for all that. And this is why I'm spending so much time and energy trying to show unto others what this is that we're talking about. Because I believe it's very special and I believe it's very significant. And I know you do too. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And this is going to grow and grow and grow because you're going to start to find that all these little groups, some of these groups are not little. All these movements, all these truth seekers, all these individuals are going to start finally coming together here real quick. When one of us or some of us starts making some incredible progress. And again, getting into chambers with equitable paperwork invokes a court of chancery. Even though the clerks are going to say that doesn't exist. Point is, loved ones, is that we're making progress now that we never had before. And we got a lot of people doing it. So when we can have an organized or an assembly, again, yeah, nice word there. I think that was even you, Big Kahuna, that threw that one out there the other day. When we have an assembly or an assemblage of people with charitable hearts in mind, and they have the desire to help others. Spirit and Creator Father is going to be sending us love bolts to help us, not lightning bolts. Now these bursts of energy are going to keep us going. That's what keeps us motivated. That's what gets us up in the morning, even when it's raining and cold and shitty outside. You're still full of life and joy, and you're still happy to be here and have another chance at it, and to do what you can to affect as much change and touch and concern as many as you can. That's what the Gospels are trying to teach us. We're supposed to be shouting this stuff from the rooftops once you figure it out. But getting around the sin, that social construct, is the most paramount part of what we are trying to do here. So again, thanks to all you loved ones so far, because yeah, we are laying some stuff down here. And again, with the Crayon School coming out, KïnderGardën, this is the wisdom system, loved ones, the ones that system that we were talking about. This is it. So contribute at large here. And just because you'll see myself or other loved ones here respecting one topic, let's say we're talking about fictions right now, that doesn't mean that Wendy or Isabel can't throw in a comment here about gardening
right in the middle of this conversation. Do not feel that you cannot contribute based on the context of the conversation at the moment. I don't care. I can pick through all this stuff and still answer 35 different things all at once, okay? So let's just expand here. Let's just keep letting it rip. Right on. Love you guys. Hey, Rob. 2 beautiful posts, my friend. Completely agree with you. And here's why. I'm standing back looking at his story, and I'm seeing a lot of abuse. I'm seeing a lot of imbalance. I'm seeing a lot of energies in the wrong area being, manipulated for profit and gain when that was just an abusive process. So anyway, moving forward there, yeah. I'm looking at the women have gotten the shitty end of the stick here for about long enough. I'm thinking, why wouldn't they be given an opportunity? More so than they've ever had. Would that in itself not be conscionable? Would that not in itself be seeking a greater balance, a greater connection, a greater love, a greater understanding, overstanding? Would that just not be so much more encompassing than to just keep doing and washing and rinsing and repeating the same shit we've done as a society for thousands of years? When was the last time Wonder Woman's took over? I can't even recall an event like that in any part of history. So you know what? What about being a part of creating one? 144,000 of us, I know that. And I'm going to say the bulk of it should almost be women. Just my gut feeling on this one for some reason. To show that I can be open to a perspective where there ought to be greater balance, greater connection. When you have, I know a little bit about electrical systems. I know a little bit about plumbing systems. I know a little bit about building houses. When you have a pipe that's bigger, it is capable of more flow at the same pressure, right? If you're only just using, your garden hose and the city water pressure, that's going to come out at 1, right? But if you add the size of a 3-foot pipe to the end of city pressure, you want to know what kind of flow we're talking about at the other end? Therefore, what type of current does love create when man and woman can finally speak to each other? Where there finally is some equality, some equity, where we actually can take a step back, allow them an opportunity to rise because they've never been given it before. All because of Eve fucked up. And again, this is why me, I'm here to forgive her first and foremost. And move on. Build from there. There has been discord in the fucking garden ever since. Correct me if I'm wrong. And as a gardener, and someone who knows things about plants, and how to weed a garden, should I not be allowed to have a voice? Should I not be allowed to have input? Should I not be able to express my equitable interests in what is going on here, in what was promised unto me, when I feel like I've overcometh certain things? Does that not entitle us to certain events, the fruits thereof? Here, take the seeds to the apple that she bit into, and let's plant something better. Let's restore the garden with the seeds that got us, our asses kicked out in the first place. Our fuck up is our salvation, if you know how to do it properly. Again, Scripture talks about this a lot. All the prophetic teachings of all the other masters are all saying the same stuff. What do we have to do to get it through your heads? Put the corporate stuff aside, first and foremost. Recognize who you are. And men have proven untrustworthy. As far as I'm concerned, there's a massive karmic imbalance going on here. For some reason, we didn't get the message the other time I was here. So here we go. Here it's coming loud and clear now. But this time, we're going to have a bunch of women who have not only qualified and proven themselves. Now here, just let me touch on qualities of qualifications and what qualifies the whole thing. It's their ability to interpret energy. It's their ability to move that energy through emotions and transmute it into something else.
to recycle it. And this pandemic has given us all an incredible opportunity right now to be sitting at home doing a lot of thinking and a lot of reflecting and a lot of googly searching for stuff. So why aren't we just laying down as much positive imprint as we can? Even when you feel it may offend others, steamroll right over that. Those are the social conformists that our loved one mentions above. God has no respect for them. And it's not up to you to judge, correct? I know sometimes that's hard. And sometimes these are loved ones of you in a 3D legal world. That's why we were told to let go of all of that. Sell everything and come with me. I will show you an abundance at the end of this journey, at the end of this road. It's all written down. All we had to do was follow it. And for some of us, we are very intuitively inspired to show up this round and actually do something. Because this is a very important part of our story. It's not his story, it's our story. So this is the era, this is the time when everything does a big switcheroo. If you want to call it the pole shift, yeah, do that. Because shit's about to get real. We're shaking some temples down here, and people are starting to notice it. The watchers are watching. I know that. We know that. Take advantage of the time you got. So yeah, Rob, I mean, beautiful comments, man. We're doing this as a team. No more division. No more segregation. Satan knows we're not strong when we're not together. There must be a reunion. A reuniting. That reignition fires all the systems up, and then shit starts getting real. So again, for the ladies to qualify, and I'm not excluding men here, what I'm saying is that the men have been in control for a very long time, and karmically their imprint is now opened to other imprint. Because of the facts and the evidences, we're looking at a whole new ball game now. We had to leave that old stadium and go build a new one because our game is a lot better. The difference between 3D and 5D. What's 4D? What is that one? Right? We talk about 3 and 5 a lot, but again, what is 4? 4 is the transitioning, the awakening, the aha moments, the doing the digging, the getting excited, it's the listening to these audios, it's participating, it's protesting if you want. But you know what? Show up with your protest, with your complaint and remedy. I see a lot of complaining, but I don't see any remedy yet out there. So A, show up with flowers. Show up with, signs of peace. If you want to park your table in front of someone's house, do it in a loving fashion. And for all these people nowadays running around with their hoodies up and their sunglasses on, and you again, right? You almost can't even tell these are people anymore. What if there's robots running around under there? How would you even know, right? Like, okay, enough with that. We need to see faces again. It's funny how society, it's funny how that society wants these nameless, faceless things running around out there, almost like zombies. Sounds rather contrary to some of the spiritual things I've read. Doesn't sound very garden-like to me. And that's why it's up to us to continue with what we're doing to get ahead of this. So that when we overcome, all those that were meant to come with us will do just that. But it takes work. It takes commitment. It takes sacrifice. It takes being open. It takes being able to be taught. A lot of us that are older than, a lot of us that are in our 60s and 70s now and even later that have been around the block a lot of times. Sometimes a lot of these loved ones have a very tough time listening to a guy like me. And that's okay. Because at some point, the messages, the frequencies, there starts to be enough overlap and there starts to be enough similarities versus dissimilarities that the process continues anyway, right on schedule. because the right people are actually standing up and doing something about it. Even if you're sitting at your kitchen table thinking about it, that may be enough for right now. But should you desire more? We certainly hope so. Keep going. Fantastic stuff, loved ones. And yeah, continuing there, Rob, now that I can see the rest of the conversation. Yeah, we don't need the leaders and rulers per se, no. We just need to see it once. You know, isn't that weird, right? Like when you see or you hear something for the first time, you're like, oh, it all makes such sense. But until you read it, saw it, heard it, felt it, tasted it, you weren't aware of it. We didn't know it. So if you don't know it, you're never going to get it. So again, to have this ability of interaction now where we can all start to do stuff together, it's going to inspire. Again, I have no idea what it is in me, in what's behind me, us, that inspires you. I'd like to think I have an idea. But to truly experience it, that's for you. That's for the audience. That's for the other loved ones out there to do this with us. And it's in your experience that you'll actually find how powerful this is. Not just me talking about it, telling stories about it. It's about you doing it. And then you coming back and inspiring me with something you've done. And you see how see what you just built right there? Right there. Instant trust. And I've never met you. See how powerful that is? And yet how simple it is? And then we all start sharing our stories, our experiences. And you feel that energy that just starts ripping through. Now times that by a lot of people. What do you get? Isn't that a form of protest already? Right from your kitchen table? Just collectively raising the vibration? That's more than a protest. That's like, yeah, it's like a whole other category kind of stuff. But now act on it further. Get charged up and go for it. Go do some crazy stuff that you would never have done a month ago. Or shit you would never have thought of 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Oh, those freaking conspiracy theorists. Oh yeah, no thanks. Oh yeah, really? Look around now. Mm-hmm.